Alrighty, party peoples of the interwebs, a quick vlog because it is day one of Donald Trump's Alvin Bragg prosecution in New York State for the Stormy Daniels hush money payment, or as they're now rebranding this trial, election interference because of the catch and kill story, pursuant to which Trump allegedly bought Stormy Daniels' silence as relates to an affair that she now says she had with Trump, which she had previously denied on 5OK. Doesn't matter. You know the baseline to this story. The trial started today. I had made the prediction that something was going to come in the way of this trial getting started today, and we're at the stage of jury selection as of about, what time is it now, 3:25 in the afternoon, Monday, April 15. I'm getting this vlog out because we've got a live stream tonight and we're going to talk about this, and I just want to get a summary for those of you who cannot follow. Adam Klasfeld on the Twitterverse, who's covering this in real time because this is in New York court, state court. They are not broadcasting this trial. They are not having it totally transparent for the world to see. But the bottom line, when the public gets to see these trials in real time, as we've seen with Rittenhouse, they tend to understand what's going on a little better. As relates to Fani Willis, when people get to see this in real time, they get to see firsthand the total corruption without the filter, without the spin of MSM propaganda. We're not going to get that this time around. So we've got to rely on journalists who are in the courtroom tweeting out in real time, because there's no video, no audio, at Klasfeld Reports, that is Klasfeld Reports, is covering it. He's doing a great job. He might have a bit of a lefty angle to it as far as I can tell, but intentions don't matter when someone is doing good work, providing the facts to the world for them to see. They're getting into jury selection today. That's day one of the trial. The issues that had to be resolved before jury selection, there were preliminary motions that needed to be addressed, a reiteration of a motion for recusal of Judge Juan Merchan for a variety of reasons, which we've covered and will cover more as I read through the tweets. So they had a few things, bookkeeping, or housekeeping, I should say, not bookkeeping, housekeeping to take care of. I just want to read through some of the highlights of Klasfeld's tweets, and I will flash the tweet up as I read it and give you some insights in as much as I can offer on this. This was earlier this morning. Before the trial, Justice Merchan allowed prosecutors to mention the Access Hollywood tape to jurors, but not play it. He denies the district attorney's bid for him to reconsider that ruling. I remain convinced at this moment, based on the evidence, that the tape itself should not come in. They're talking about preliminary evidentiary stuff right now that they don't want to debate in front of a jury. Get it resolved before the jury comes in so that you don't kick them out while you debate, waste the time of the jury. So they're trying to get rid of a number of preliminary issues before the jury even comes in. The judge says, you're not going to play the tape, but you can talk about the grab her by the... And the funny thing is, you think like maybe this is a bit of a give and a take from Trump. Yeah, they can talk about the tape, but they're not going to play it. This is all setting up what I believe is thoroughly a kangaroo court show trial, setting this up for the conviction. That's what they're trying to do. So the judge says, yes, prosecutors will be allowed to mention the Access Hollywood tape. They just won't be allowed to play the tape. The judge also denies a bid to enter Trump's deposition from the E. Jean Carroll case into evidence. Trump defended his remarks about the Access Hollywood tape in that deposition. Okay, video and audio recording is prohibited, the screen warns. New York state law doesn't allow live streaming of court proceedings, and so reporters and sketch artists will be the link to the public to describe and show how the proceedings looked and sounded. And sure, what could possibly go wrong with that? There's not going to be any loss in translation from not seeing it firsthand, only relying on live tweeting or those ridiculous court sketches. When we saw it in real time, we could see what a raging buffoon Nathan Wade was. We could see what a wreck Fani Willis was. We could see the corruption in real time. We could see Terrence Bradley sweating it out on the stand. They're not going to let us see that now. And so we're going to have to rely on other people explaining what's going on. Justice Merchan announces that jury selection is ahead. There are a couple of loose ends that we have to go over before we can start. He starts with the pending motion for recusal. You might recall, Trump is asking for this judge to be recused because in addition to what many would feel to be overt animus from this judge, his daughter is president of a, what do they call them, a PR firm that's representing Adam Schiff and Democrat political action committees. His daughter, Judge Juan Merchan's daughter, worked on Kamala Harris's 2020 campaign. His daughter gave a podcast back in 2019 where she mentioned how her father mentioned to her how her father hates how some politicians use Twitter, clearly a reference to Trump. His daughter, allegedly in her Twitter feed, posted a tweet that said this man belongs in prison. And who has the power to put Trump in prison? Her father. So Trump has reiterated his request for recusal because back in the day when he initially made it, the judge said, it's all very hypothetical. There's no concrete reason for the recusal. We'll deal with it later. And now additional information has come out. It's no longer hypothetical. It's no longer abstract. It's quite concrete. Trump's renewed recusal motion is based on a, quote, series of inferences, innuendos, and unsupported speculation, end quote, the judge says. What a surprise that the judge, who is arguably, but not so arguably, disqualified from sitting in this case, says, no, I can sit in this case. They go on to the discussion as to the jury selection afterwards. The judge makes clear that apparently there was some confusion about this. Passover, or the observance of Passover, will not be a bar, will not preclude jury members from sitting. So there's that, I guess. The judge clarified the court's schedule over the Passover holiday, explaining that he would inform jurors that the court would accommodate any religious observances. More on that later. One of the prosecutors expressed concern about the judge's use of the word, quote, anti-Trump, end quote, on the jury questionnaire, describing the word as vague. These are some of the questions, and we go over some of the questions that appear on the jury questionnaire. Then there's some additional debate as to what will be allowed in evidence. Klarsfeld reports as follows. Over the defense's objections, the judge allows prosecutors to show jurors evidence about Trump's arrangement with AMI's David Pecker, that he would publish flattering stories about Trump and negative stories about his opponents before the 2016 election. Todd Blanche argues there isn't, quote, probative value, end quote, to showing the jurors Karen McDougal's story. Quote, it's a side trial, end quote, Blanche says, adding it's one thing they can't do anything about. Trump isn't charged in connection with that catch and kill scheme. Here I'm sort of sensitive to what exactly is going on, that they're going to try to have a mini trial, sort of try to depict Trump's intentions of engaging in election interference by pursuing catch and kill, as they're called. You buy the rights to a story that would be prejudicial, and then you never run the story, so it never sees the light of day. If we're getting into the realm of NDAs becoming election interference, well, my goodness, a lot of people are going to go to jail, but of course people are not going to go to jail because these are only going to be applied in a partisan hack of a manner. Doesn't matter. Moving on with Klarsfeld's reporting. Justice Marchand calls the admissibility of the, quote, sleazebag, end quote, tweet about Michael Cohen, quote, academic. Quote, I imagine that there's going to be an effort to discredit Michael Cohen, end quote, the judge deadpans, and the moment that is done, the door is opened, end quote. His ruling, prosecutors cannot share Trump's Truth Social post about Michael Cohen on direct, but it will inevitably be admissible on redirect. And that was a discussion as to whether or not the prosecution could admit as evidence a Truth Social post from Trump referring to Michael Cohen as a dirtbag or a scumbag, whatever it was, as if we all didn't know that already. A convicted perjurer who allegedly had an affair with the porn star who's the other star witness of all this. Doesn't matter. They want to bring that in, I presume, to potentially argue that Trump has violated his gag order, which I think they're going to do, in that he's intimidating a potential witness to this case, that being Michael Cohen. Whatever. Everybody knows that Michael Cohen is a sleazebag. Sleazebag was the word. Everybody already knows that. So in a way, it is academic, and we have no doubt that they're going to try to impugn the integrity of the convicted perjurer, Michael Cohen. Next, there's some discussion as to whether or not the prosecution can admit as evidence Michael Cohen's guilty plea for other campaign finance violations. Next request by ADA Steinglass. Prosecutors want the judge to admit evidence about Michael Cohen's guilty plea for campaign finance violations under FECA. That's one of the statutes that would elevate Trump's falsifying business records counts to felonies. Because bear in mind, while Alvin Bragg reduced the majority of felony crimes to misdemeanor crimes in the state of New York, he elevated Trump's bookkeeping election interference misdemeanors in the best of worlds to 37 felony charges that run the risk of 130 some odd years in prison. Yeah, there's totally nothing abnormal about any of this. This is just how things work in a kangaroo court. Justice Marchand notes that Trump's lawyers want to discredit Cohen with his guilty pleas to other charges, but not the campaign finance violations. The judge appears skeptical of that attempt. The legal issue, the jury cannot consider Cohen's guilty plea in that case as evidence of Trump's guilt in this one, but prosecutors say that's not the purpose here. Assistant District Attorney Steinglass says Cohen's plea is, quote, probative, end quote, of his credibility, end quote, having pleaded guilty to this offense. There is then some discussion as to who's going to receive the identities of the jurors. One thing is for certain, the general public is not going to receive the identities of the jurors because, that would be a bad thing if the aggregate knowledge of the interwebs could sniff out any potential activist jurors in the jury pool, as occurred in the Chauvin case, where we discovered there was an activist juror on the jury, as we discovered in the Roger Stone case, when we discovered there was an activist jury who we discovered was the actual forward jury, whatever the word is there, the lead juror. Yeah, we discovered that in the other two cases. In this case, the general public is, again, not going to get to know the identities of the jurors, not get to do their due diligence, so there will be a little bit of darkness as relates to the jurors. Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, asks about obtaining jury identities. Justice Marchand says he will hand the parties two lists, one with the jurors' numbers, another with the jurors' names. The latter list isn't to be photographed or shared, he orders. The list with the names will be returned to the court. The press and public will not have access to that list per the terms of the judge's earlier order. Some people on the internet were wondering, why would we even need to know the names of the jurors? Well, first things first, Typically, as a rule, not as the exception, trials are public. And so you get to know who's conducting the trial, who the jury members are, and this is not something that occurs in a dark room in total anonymity like you would see, I don't know, say in North Korea, for example. Sunlight is the greatest disinfectant, and the aggregate knowledge of the internet is capable of doing a due diligence on the jurors that potentially the parties are not capable of doing, exposing the corruption for the world to see. But in this case, no televised trial. We can't take pictures of there. You're not going to get to see testimony firsthand. You're not going to get to know who the jury members are, and people are going to say, well, this is necessary so that they don't get intimidated, they don't get threatened into acquitting Trump. The reality is they would probably get more threatened and intimidated to convict Trump, and if they didn't, they might wake up with a pig's head on their front lawn, as occurred to one of the witnesses in the Chauvin case. Although it was the old address and not the new address, doesn't really matter. Those who want to threaten and intimidate the jurors are going to get their names regardless. But that's it. That's where we're at as of now. Jury selection is going to continue. I don't know how long it's going to take, but we'll discuss this tonight with Robert Barnes during our Sunday night show on a Monday. VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com. If you like what I do, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe. Viva Frei on Rumble. Viva Frei on Twitter. VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com for the best above average community anywhere. And more important than anything, get out there, exercise, eat healthy, talk to people in real life, and now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps. Booyah! I just want to highlight something that I forgot to mention. The day is over. Jury selection is going to begin again tomorrow morning at 9:30. The judge highlighted to the jury that this trial is expected to last 6 weeks. That's a month and a half. It's April to May. This trial is supposed to go into June. During an election season, when Trump is supposed to be campaigning, when the judge said he's going to forfeit his right to attend the trial if he doesn't attend every day, they want to tie Trump up for 6 weeks during the election season, gag him with a court order during an election season. This is lawfare election interference. Everybody has to understand that, and I think everybody is beginning to understand that. This is lawfare election interference. It's the biggest steaming load of judicial dog poop you can possibly imagine. What the judge is doing in this case, what Alvin Bragg is doing in this case, is criminal election interference, in my humble opinion. Hashtag no defamation. Whatever. It is what it is. It's going to pick back up tomorrow at 9:30 with jury selection. See you in about an hour and a half. VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com. Out. Booyah.